Do you think we could learn more from Cain or from Abel? Well, the answer might surprise you. If you've been watching recently, then you know that I have at heart men. And I want men to be filled with wisdom so that they can walk this earth filled with the Holy Spirit and doing what the Holy Spirit deems is best for them. And what is the best way to do that? I think it's by looking at men from the Bible and seeing what we can learn not only from their successes, but their failures as well. Because men from the Bible are fallible just as we are. We looked at Adam last week. If you haven't watched that video, it's up now. You can watch it now. I recommend it. Today we are talking about Cain and Abel. So do make sure you stay until the end, because the last point, even I was surprised about, and I'm pretty sure you'll be surprised as well. Genesis 4. Adam made love to his wife Eve, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. She said, "With the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man." Later, she gave birth to his brother Abel. Now, Abel kept flocks, and Cain worked the soil. In the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord. And Abel also brought an offering, fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering he did not look with favor. So Cain was very angry, and his face was downcast. So from this, we can already extract the first success, and this success is Abel's success, of course, and it's offering to God the first fruits of our labor. So here we saw that Abel brought an offering to the Lord. He brought fat portions from the firstborn of his flock. Abel gave the best portions to God, and in contrast, Cain gave some of his fruit. So assuming that he did not give the best, he just gave some of what he has to the Lord. Why is this important? It's because God is the one who provides everything for us. And you know very well that we should be grateful to God for everything that he provides, and that even though we do work for what we earn, it is God in the end that provides for us. So, as someone who's thankful to God, we should simply show our gratitude by giving him the best, the first of what he has provided for us, because that is what a good disciple does. And this ties into the discipline of tithing that we do today. And that's something that's incredibly difficult. I'll admit it's difficult for me even today. No, not just in the past, but today. I'm intent on making this year the year where I tithe every single time I get paid. I know that this is difficult for a lot of us, and we see that this is something that the Lord looked down upon Cain. He did not look at him with favor because of this. So it is a very important discipline to be able to give the first fruits to God, to give the best of what we have to God. In the case of tithing, this should be the first thing that you budget for. The first thing that you give to God is your tithe, as a gesture of gratitude, because God, it's God's money. It's God's money in the end. So this is something that we should do. This is something that Cain did not do, and the Lord did not look at him with favor. Some of you Christians think that the tithe is something that's of the old alliance, that it's something that's in Moses' law. But we see here that this predates Moses. This predates even Abraham. We see Cain and Abel bringing a tithe to the Lord. So this is not something that's in Moses' law. It's not something that we don't apply today. This is a simple posture of heart that we should have every time we earn, whether we are farming, whether we are just getting paid with money. If we earn something from our work, we should show gratitude to God by giving the first of that portion to him, because it's his. Abel was successful here in that he gave his first fruits to God. He gave the fat portion of the firstborn of his animals to God. And Cain, in contrast, did not. He only gave some of the fruits. He did not give a choice offering to God. He did not give the best offering to God. He only gave whatever to God. So, in contrast to Abel, we can see here the failure of Cain is that he's selfish. It's selfishness that is pushing Cain to only give a portion He's probably thinks that he's the one that worked for this, that he's the one that provides for himself. It is his hands that work for it. He has a low level of gratitude for him. And this is something that I can relate to. I often feel that I have worked so hard during the week, and that, yes, I can give some to God, but I sometimes giving a whole tithe is too much. I have worked for this money. I deserve to be able to keep it in my pockets. I deserve to be able to spend it the way I want, or to save it the way that I want. But a discipline that shows our posture of gratitude towards God, that shows our posture of just being able to relinquish control to God, is to be able to give a favorable tithe. And arguably, today, giving money to God, just simply money, should be easier than giving the first fruits of our fruits that we cultivated, or the first fruits being the animals that we cultivated. If you have to nourish your family with these animals or with these fruits, and you have to give the best of it to God, that that's difficult. Here we only have to give money, and we only have to give 10%. Arguably, we should even give more if we're thankful to God, but at the minimum we should give 10% to him. So we can see here the contrast of Abel being submitted to God, and Cain being selfish, thinking of himself, thinking of keeping the best for himself rather than giving it to God. So Cain was very angry, and his face was downcast. The Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It deserves to have you, but you must rule over it." So Cain was jealous. The Lord is warning him, hey, don't be angry. If you had done what was right, you would not be angry right now. If you don't do what's right, then sin is at your door. You might be causing yourself to sin. Now Cain said to his brother Abel, "Let's go out to the field." While they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" "I don't know," he replied. "Am I my brother's keeper?" I just want to address Cain's disrespect here, because he's talking to God right now, and God is asking him, "Cain, where's your brother?" And Cain is just like, "I don't know, God. Do I look like this brother's babysitter?" Just a high level of disrespect. Just wanted to highlight that. The Lord said, "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are under a curse and driven from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its crops for you. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth." So, what's the lesson here? The lesson is not that Cain was jealous. We know that jealousy is wrong. The lesson is not either that Cain murdered his brother. We know that murdering your brother is wrong. We know that murdering anybody is wrong. The lesson here, I think, stems from what the Lord had warned Cain prior to him killing his brother. I think what we can learn from here is that Cain's jealousy turned into murder. And sometimes we have feelings that sometimes may be justified, sometimes they may not be justified, but these feelings can lead us to sin. In this case, Cain's jealousy turned into murder. Sometimes your sexual desires can turn into cheating on your wife, it can turn into watching pornography. Sometimes your desire for something tasty might lead you to stealing, might lead you to overindulging in food. Today, we are often appealing to our feelings. We're a very hedonistic people. We want to be satisfied by what we are feeling, and we don't think that our feelings might lead us to sin. And this is exactly what happened to Cain. So all of a sudden, yes, Cain is a murderer, but he becomes much more relatable, because even though he murdered, this just stemmed from a jealousy towards his brother. Sometimes we can feel jealous towards people. I've seen men be jealous of other men and then hit them in the face because they became so angry at them, and they really didn't have a fair justification for hitting them in the face. They simply were jealous in the beginning. So you have to be careful. Your feelings, your heart is deceitful. This is in the scriptures. Your heart is deceitful above all things. So you need to be careful with your feelings. You need to watch your feelings, and you need to speak to your feelings instead of let yourself be controlled by your feelings. Your feelings can cause you to sin. And when you feel things, well, sin might be right there knocking at your door. So instead of being like Cain and just addressing our feelings with a sinful action, we need to watch out. We need to be careful, and we need to listen to the Lord and consult Him when we are feeling things. Give them up to the Lord. Here, Cain was confronted by the Lord, and as disrespectful as he is, he just turned his head and did the opposite of what the Lord said. So, in our case, what we can do is we can give our feelings up to the Lord. We can confess our feelings to the Lord and don't not let them devolve into sin. So let's be careful with that. This is something that becomes much more relatable when we hear Cain's story. Verse 12: When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its crops for you. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth. Cain said to the Lord, my punishment is more than I can bear. Today you are driving me from the land, and I will be hidden from your presence. I will be a restless wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me. But the Lord said to him, not so. Anyone who kills Cain will suffer vengeance 7 times over. Then the Lord put a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him. I just want to say, every time I've read this verse up until this week, I thought that what God was doing was punishing Cain. I thought that this was like those movie moments where someone says, I'd rather die than deal with what I've done. And then their enemy tells them, no, you are going to suffer your entire life for this, or you are going to feel this suffering for the rest of your life. I thought this was that kind of moment. I thought that the Lord was punishing Cain. But I was really surprised reading this verse earlier this week and seeing God's heart through this, seeing that God is not seeking to punish Cain by doing this, but he's seeking to do something much, much greater. So Cain went out from the Lord's presence and lived in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Cain made love to his wife, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Enoch. Cain was then building a city, and he named it after his son Enoch. To Enoch was born Irad, and Irad was the father of Mehujael, and Mehujael was the father of Methujael, and Methujael was the father of Lamech. Lamech married 2 women, one named Adah and the other Zillah. Adah gave birth to Jabal. He was the father of those who live in tents and raise livestock. His brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all who played string instruments and pipes. Zillah also had a son, Tubal Cain, who forged all kinds of tools out of bronze and iron. Tubal Cain's sister was Nama. Lamech said to his wives, Adah and Zillah, listen to me. Wives of Lamech, hear my words. I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for injuring me. If Cain is avenged 7 times, then Lamech 77 times. Seemingly, God punished Cain, but then we see Cain, instead of suffering as he said that he would and wander in the desert and just be killed by someone, no, Cain gets back up. And that is the success that we can learn from Cain. Because of God, Cain was able to get back up. Not only was he able to get back up, but Cain, he was able to feel the love of a woman again. He was able to give birth to a son, and then his sons gave birth to sons. He was even building a city, it said. Not only that, but it says that one of the people that descended from Cain was Jubal, and he was the father of all who played string instruments and pipes. God used this to help Cain get back up, and Cain took this opportunity. He got back up, he built a city, he had a wife. With his wife, they had sons, and his sons had sons. This is amazing because if Cain, the guy who murdered his brother, got back up, then you can get back up as well. Cain's story didn't end at him murdering his brother. Cain's story didn't end at him getting this mark from God. So if this is the case for Cain, then you who's been bought back by Jesus' blood, your story does not end at you lying. Your story does not end at you stealing from your parents. Your story doesn't end at you cheating on a test or cheating on your wife or cheating the government on your taxes. Your story doesn't end at the bad things that you've done, even if you've murdered someone. Through Jesus, you can continue your story and you can continue doing what is pleasing to God, or just start doing what is pleasing to God for the first time if you've never done it, just like Cain over here. In the end, Cain was blessed. His descendants were blessed. They did not just stop or cease to exist. He continued to live and he lived fruitfully. And I like to think that Cain, from this moment on, actually gave his first fruits to God and learned his lesson. It doesn't say it in the Bible, so who knows? But hopefully that is the case. This surprised me so much, and I hope that it's something valuable for you just as it is for me. This means that God has always been the same. It means that his heart for redemption has been consistent, and it's been the same since the beginning of creation. God's plan has always been to redeem us. It's always been for our restoration, and God has only continued to do that, and has done this in the most powerful way through sending Jesus to us. And through Jesus's resurrection, we get a second chance at life. We get to live eternally, but we also get to redeem our current life here on earth while we await for his return and while we await to be made anew. This is amazing news, and I hope this encourages you to turn things around, to not look back at what you've done as the end of you, but to look towards what God has planned for you and do things that are pleasing to him for your life. So that was it for Cain and Abel. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed this, make sure you watch the video that I made about Adam last week. And if you've already watched that and you're still not subscribed, I don't know what you're doing, but you should definitely click on that subscribe button. It's nothing at all. Thank you so much for tuning in. Ciao.